As I record this right now, it's 11 p.m. in Shanghai, and Shanghai Disneyland has just completed its first day of operations since the onset of COVID-19. A week ago, there were no Disney parks open anywhere in the world, and there was very little prospect of anything like that happening, at least as far as we knew. And then we got the announcement from Disney that Shanghai was set to reopen in a week with limited capacity and extensive social distancing guidelines in place. A day that I didn't expect to happen anytime soon has come and gone. It's actually happened. An operating Disney park is a thing again. Now, of course, the next thing that I want to do, as always, is to analyze. I want to figure out how it went, what happened, how did it go, how did it feel to guests in the park? To do this, all we got to do is look at some video and photos that were taken from guests in the park and posted on Twitter, and we can see how things went. The morning started with a little bit of fanfare, not a lot, but a little bit of fanfare. A reopening speech from the VP of Operations, and then a lovely playing of a Mary Poppins favorite. Hardly any people at all, though, in those images that we just saw. The park opened at 30% capacity, which is roughly 24,000 people, and those 24,000 tickets were sold out within like 30 minutes for that opening day. But it sure doesn't look like 24,000 people. But for us Disneyland regulars, we got to remember that we go to a comparatively tiny park. Shanghai is enormous. There is lots of space for those 24,000 people. Makes you kind of wonder if we could get away with that same thing, that same ratio, the 30% ratio, or 24,000 people here in Disneyland, because that's much closer quarters than the wide open spaces of Shanghai, or even Magic Kingdom, or some of the other Walt Disney World parks, which also are much larger in total gross area. All right, let's look at some queues to see how the actual rides felt and looked. Here's Pirates. Now this is not at rope drop. If I'm not mistaken, this would have been about 11 a.m. local time. Is this really reality? Is this real life? There's nobody in these queues at all. And you can see the markings on the rails for social distancing. We saw that in that preview video. And there are also markings on the ground in certain areas, just like the ones we also saw in the preview video. So it's kind of a mix of both. Some areas, interestingly, are marked as pass-through, and that means no standing at all. You just walk right on through. Not sure why anybody would stop in a queue that's empty, but there you go. They don't want anybody standing in those areas. Here's the Tron Queue. Same thing, middle of the day. To be honest, it's kind of hard to tell with these images that we're seeing if this is working, or I should say, if it will work with more guests. Let's say if they up it to 50%. Obviously, this is great and all, but this is not a permanent situation realistically, not by a long shot. It is easy to keep your social distance under these conditions, but just double the number of people. Go from 30 to 60, or even to 50, let's say. And it's a whole different situation. So it's hard to draw any conclusions, in my opinion, from what we've seen so far out of Shanghai. How about this? Here's some wait times at around 4 p.m. And if you know Disney, then that's pretty much a peak time for any Disney park. 30 minutes in Toy Story Land for Rex's Racers and Slinky Dog Dash, but 5 minutes for Tron. Now, I don't want to get into an argument about which attraction should have more guests in its queue, but it is interesting to observe that there is a significant greater amount of people waiting to get into Toy Story Land than there is into Tron, and that, I don't know, that may or may not speak to, I don't know if that's a typical thing for Shanghai. Maybe they do love Toy Story over there. But that may or may not speak to what people want from a Disney park in these times. And you got Sauron at 40 minutes, and this looks to be about the busiest place in the park. Now, this is an attraction where I would have loved to have seen a camera, seen a little footage from inside this queue. First of all, I mean, you got 40 minutes, which means it's not a walk-on like we saw for Pirates and Tron, where people are just, walking straight in. You've got a lot of people waiting. So I want to see how they're managing that. Not only that, though, but also the fact that this is not one of those attractions or rides that have a queue that keeps moving like Pirates does. For Sauron, there's a lot of standing. There's a good solid 10 minutes of just standing there waiting for something to happen, waiting for the next show to move through. The guests don't walk through. So how are they spacing those guests out, waiting for 40 minutes in a still position? And then there's shows. What about shows? Another situation where guests are found to be standing still waiting for something to happen or watching something happen standing still. We had heard that they were going to be putting in squares on the ground that would indicate a seat, and that those would be all, at least I think they said a meter apart, which would, that works great for keeping the distance, but does it work? Does it work in terms of being a place for crowds to gather? And here's an example. This is the Chippendale show. It's a very small show, and it feels like maybe there were maybe a dozen, 20 people there. It's hard to tell, but it doesn't seem like it's a lot. And I would say that this would work, especially if they're doing this show multiple times throughout the day. Various groups can take a chance or an opportunity to catch that show. But turn that into 200 or 300, like we heard about the show that's going on in front of the castle, and those seats, which I don't think they can do those continuously throughout the day, would be in much higher demand. So how long would people be squatting on those seats, I wonder, those spaces? And it's interesting to think about, because again, it looks like it's working. This is the first day, but it looks like it's working for small groups. But what if you were to double that? What if we turn that into 50%? Now you've got more demand for those spots, but you can't make more spots. That's going to be a dicey situation. Now, mind you, don't take that as criticism. And by that I mean, I wasn't expecting to have shows of this nature at all. I thought that was the first thing that was going to get cut. They talked about doing that. Parades, fireworks, things like that. Things that gave people an opportunity to stop and commingle. So the fact that we're getting anything at all is an improvement on what I previously thought possible. So like I said, this isn't a criticism. I'm just curious how they're going to be able to try to manage that going forward as capacity increases. Now, one thing that's interesting is that doing this sort of thing, allowing for live shows to occur like this, it requires a lot of cast members to manage guests, to do, make sure coaching them into the right places to be, coaching them in terms of what they can do and what they can't do. And the good news is that by all appearances, it looks like Disney and Shanghai have put on the full court press with cast members. They were everywhere. There were more cast members, when I'm looking at these videos and photos, than there were guests in some cases. Often. This is a moving meet and greet of Toy Story characters, and you can see the cast members following along with them, kind of riding shotgun, and it's pretty close. They are needed because you can even see some guests cross through the frame there, so it is pretty close. By the way, watching this video, it made me stop caring about all that. It made me stop caring about masks and social distance and all that stuff. All I wanted to do was to be there and watch those characters walk by. Nothing else mattered to me. So in terms of whether or not I'm having a good time, at least in my own headspace while I watch this, I am prepared for this. I'm ready for this. You tell me what I have to wear, where I have to stand, and I'll do it. So that's all I want to do right now, is watch Woody and Jessie and some Toy Story characters. Now, getting back to that video, this is what I was talking about in terms of cast members coaching guests. So how many does it take? How many cast members does it take to keep things going for a show like this? Well, the answer is 6. There were 6 cast members for this little, small Toy Story pop-up meet and greet. And it's like that all over the park, as best as I can tell. Shanghai is taking the full measure. We wondered a few shows ago if they would reduce staff along with reducing capacity. It makes sense, but that does not seem to be the case. In fact, if anything, it looks like they've added more cast members, which is, it's really great news. And that's personally, that's something that I am looking for. More than anything else, I want to feel like we're in good hands, like that we're being thought of and considered and taken care of, that they've thought about this. And part of doing that is making a big show of all those cast members and saying, them telling us, we're here to help you, we're here to do whatever it takes to make you feel comfortable. Because I know this is dicey, man, this is dicey, and people want to be reassured. If you're gonna go to a Disney park, if you're on the fence about whether or not to go to Disney park, this is how they do it. This is how they get us in the park, is by reassuring us with these cast members present. Is it actually effective? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. It makes me feel better in my head, and that goes a long way towards me being able to have a good time when I'm at Disney. And really, that's what we're there for, right? When we go to Disneyland, we're there to have fun and to escape our reality. And I know it's hard to do that when you've got a mask on and people telling you where to stand, But this, having those cast members there helps. It puts the pressure on them, sort of, as opposed to you trying to manage the other guests and being mindful of everybody else. They're doing it for you, and I really, really appreciate that. Now, I know some people, as I've mentioned before, would object to this, object to the masks and all that stuff, and that's okay. We're all allowed to feel however we want about this. So in that case, please do feel free to not go until you feel good and ready. Nobody's asking you or forcing you to go. This is for the guests who do want to give it a shot, like me. And with that, as always, I want to hear from you guys. What do you think? How does this look to you? We've heard the plans and we've seen the previews. Now we've seen it live and in action. Or have we really, actually? Because, like I said, there are so few people there, it's hard to draw any real conclusions. But do let us know in the comments below. And until next time, guys, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you haven't already. Hit the notification bell and share our channel with your friends. Let them know about Fresh Baked. And until next time, like I said, thanks for watching, everybody. And Fresh Baked.